Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it. All right, so the goal is to not bore you guys. I appreciate you guys showing up to learn about the business. I'm going to peel back some layers of the onion so you can understand my life story and also how I built the app. So who am I? You guys are here to hear me speak, right? So I should at least tell you who I am. I have a BA, a bachelor's in multimedia design from American University. I actually was in DC for 9/11. I worked at a psychological test publishing company for 10 years. It was a family business of ours. I did the marketing and branding there, which included logo design and product marketing. I was the actual project manager and developer of the first concussion app for the iPhone that came out in 2011 that helped parents recognize the signs and symptoms of concussions. Britt already mentioned the MBA from here. I also had a private equity company I worked in prior to that. I was an EIR, entrepreneur in residence at UT for several years as well after graduation. And I also have had L5-S1 spinal fusion, which seems like an odd fact to put in here until you hear about what happened to me. My partner of 8 years, 2 years ago, Gone Girl'd me. Has anyone read the book or seen the movie? Yeah, I'm showing my age right now. All right, so Gone Girl is a movie about a woman who years in advance decides to essentially backstab her partner and ruin his life. And that's what my partner did to me. She had plotted years in advance. There was an actual event, a rupture in the relationship. And I started looking at some of the facts, and I started realizing she had transferred tens of thousands of dollars days, weeks before the event. And so then I started looking at all these other facts, and it started becoming this like horror story. And so the picture on the right is actually from our Newlyweds book, where she actually wrote that her favorite book or movie is Gone Girl, which was pretty poetic, if you will. So after what happened to me, once she ruptured the marriage, I fell apart. I lost 40 pounds in 2 months. 40 pounds from this, which I don't really have 40 pounds to lose. My blood pressure was 180 over 120, which if you don't know, that's stroke territory. That's like you're about to have a heart attack or a stroke. My resting heart rate was 100 beats per minute. I couldn't sleep or eat. My body's self-regulation was out of control, and it felt day and night like I had a live wire running through me because there was just so much trauma, my body didn't know what to do with it. And I soon realized that I couldn't do this alone. I mean, this was a life crisis that nearly killed me, and I needed to find help with the best people who could help me. So I went to a place in Colorado called All Points North. It's a trauma treatment center that focuses on PTSD. Unfortunately, a little expensive. 2 months inpatient there, sticker shock, I know, $180,000. Yeah. $3,000 a day to stay there and have individual talk therapy, group talk therapy, all sorts of different types of treatment. I was at a point where I felt like I had to throw the kitchen sink at the problem if I wanted to live. So here's some pictures of me. There's me doing equine therapy. There's all the meds they had me going through to try and get my dosage proper for different sleep meds so I could sleep at night and actually stay asleep and not have nightmares and all that kind of stuff. And there's a measuring of my blood pressure. If you look at the date, May 17th, that's 2 months after the life crisis event when she blew up the marriage. So even on clonidine, even on meds to bring my blood pressure down, I was still in stroke territory, which is dangerous at my age. I know I don't look it, but I'm not, a young guy anymore. So here's all the different types of treatment I did while I was there. The medication, the talk therapy, family therapy, DBT, CBT, equine therapy, and ketamine therapy. It's a lot. But during that, I started evaluating the relationship and realizing there were a lot of red flags that I missed. And this was an opportunity for me to help other people avoid the same outcome. Because of my background, I was the person I felt who could solve the problem. Because I had worked at a test publishing company, I knew how psychological tests were made. I developed and released a concussion app that worked on signs and symptoms of concussions. I had done product branding and marketing for psychological products. I'd worked with startups extensively. So I realized that I was in a unique position to actually fix this problem. So I started working on Cray. This is what a business looks like when you first start it. Works in a spreadsheet. You start collecting your ideas and creating some structure. Just to give you an idea of some of the items that are on Cray. They're very different between someone who wears an ankle monitor and someone who does not have similar goals as you, right? They're both red flags, but there's much different severity. So each of the items in Cray is weighted so that the ones that are not as important don't affect the score as much, but ones like someone who has an ankle monitor, which is usually a requirement of someone who has a felony or something like that, those need to be weighted heavier. So that's what I did. I had gone through all the items. There's a total of 78 items for the Cray score. The schemer score has a whole different set of questions. But I at least had the product created. I had the idea of what I wanted to create. And so then I had to start coming up with, well, what does the product look like? What is the brand identity? So these are some logos I had kind of played around with. The original logo for Cray was the top left. And as you can see, it kind of feels a little aggressive, a little unsafe. So I felt I had to play with it a little bit, experiment in taking a little too extreme maybe, and playing with different concepts. And what occurred to me was that, you know, a product like this, dealing with psychology, dealing with trauma, dealing with abuse, or, you know, worse, it needs to have some soft edges to it to take off a difficult topic. I know the logos on the right look very offensive, but that was the beginning of the idea in my mind that I needed to bring in humor to the product so that people would want to approach it. Because if I came up to someone and I said, hey, I have an app for you to, you know, answer questions about your relationship, and it looks boring and serious, no one's going to want to use it because that's every other product that's out there. So I started working on the logo and had come up with different versions, playing with the different letters, colors to figure out what that kind of brand identity might look like. Because you know, you only have one chance to make an impression on someone when they see your company or your logo. And so I felt that I had to have a company name and a logo that as soon as you see it, you have a good idea of what it does, right? The fox is seeing something he doesn't like, and he's waving a red flag. Red flags are pretty, widely understood to be a distress or a sign of warning. And I felt that it was the entry point of bringing humor into the app, and that was kind of the secret to it, of making it more approachable for people. So what do you do once you have the questions? You have the logos. There's something called Figma. Have you guys heard of Figma yet? Figma is a way for you to map out your designs for software, for websites. And you can essentially create every single screen of an app so that when you go to a developer, you say, hey, this is everything the app is. How much are you going to charge me for it? And if you can do the interfaces like this, it saves a lot of money. Like being able to design your own interfaces, a designer has to do that, then they might send it to a typesetter, then they might send it back to their boss, and then he might give feedback. So anything you can do yourself is extremely helpful. As you can see, it gets to be quite an overwhelming amount of screens. This is just for the app. I also have a website that we're building currently. But this is just to give you an idea, like the amount of work that goes into creating an app, creating the screens, thinking through every decision someone's going to make when they use your app. Because that's part of the difficulty too, is when you're creating a new product that's never been used before, how is it supposed to be used? You know, what buttons do you tap? What are you going to put in there? How are people going to respond to different pieces of it? And then here's the website. I felt that in order for the product to be taken seriously, the website had to match the branding, had to match the logo. Everything had to look top of the line. Believe it or not, it's just me by myself doing all of this. And yet, when people see this, when they see the app, when they see these other things, it feels like a big brand. And that's why during the launch, one of the things I did was to create a merch kit that I would send to different universities. I even did packing tape on the boxes, as you can see. Anyone who might receive that box is never gonna think it's just me in my house packing that box by myself every night for 2 weeks straight, just to get it done. But these are the kinds of ways you can make an impression that is much larger than who you are, who your product is. Because a company that might have swag like this or merch like this is, it must be a big company, because small companies don't have that. At least that's how people would think if they received this kit. So how much did all this stuff cost? That's the question I'm sure a lot of you have. The development cost total for everything was $79,000. Sounds like a lot. Creating a business for that much is not that, that's not a big ask. There was a $4,000 oops with the development team that I had hired at first, but that was to help me ideate through the product I was creating so I could kind of better understand what was in my head and kind of throw it up onto a piece of paper or into Figma, I guess you could say. But each of these pieces is important because with a product like this, you have to protect your IP. So I had to file trademarks to protect Cray score, schemer score, vibe check, and I forget what the other one is, and the tagline I use. And I do this because I had experience working at a test publishing company where I saw that that's what they do to protect their IP. Because when you create a test like this, no one else can use the word Cray score, no one else can use the word schemer score, and now I own that. So now as people start using that term, I'm the only one who can use it, so when people hear it, they only go back to my product. It's a great way to create a moat around your business that will keep other people from catching up to you, especially if you have first mover advantage and you're creating a new product in a new industry, which is what I'm doing, unfortunately. So what lessons did I learn? Well, I learned from my life experience that there's no perfect time to start a business. If I could do it in the middle of my life falling apart and going through a divorce, you guys could definitely do it. It's just all about having an idea and picking a good development team from the start. I would recommend that too. Because development teams will either make you crazy or keep you sane, they'll make you poor, or they'll help make you rich. So you really only have one chance to choose the right people to work with. I also learned that starting a new business in a new segment is difficult because you have to educate people on what it is your product is. I mean, if you went to another planet and tried to sell someone a car, they would have no idea what you're talking about. And you would have to educate them on why they need the car. You'd have to educate them on what the car is. What does the car do? What are the metrics that matter in that car? And so pivoting is also important. You have to make sure that you keep your eye on the goal, which is to solve a problem. But you shouldn't be married to a specific solution. Because what ends up happening is you get stuck on your solution, and when you stop solving the problem, a competitor comes in, solves the problem, and you now lost all your customers. So it's very important to both pivot and notice when there's feature gaps in your product. If you want to be able to compete with the bigger players, or if you want to ensure that your product is comprehensive enough for people to care about it, you have to give thought to how the users are going to use it, what they're going to need it for, maybe even think of things they haven't given thought to. And last of all, I would say give yourself grace. I know that in college, you guys probably have a lot of different demands in your lives. Working on a business in college, even a little bit each day, is more than I guarantee you 99% of other students are doing. So give yourself grace, spend time coming up with the ideas, give thought to how you're going to implement them, what tools or resources you might need, people that you've met that might be able to join you in the path that you're looking for, and just dive in. I apologize, this was a lot shorter than I expected because I'm nervous as hell up here, if I'm being honest. But I'd be happy to. Well, I didn't figure, but I let you guys know that the end was coming. I'm happy to answer questions, talk more about what's happened, talk about the app. There's also a pile over there of t-shirts and free gift cards to Starbucks taped to a card if you guys want them.